Welcome. Thank you so much for joining. If you don't know me, my name's Natalie. I am the founder and CEO of True Alignment Academy. Just by being on this call, you're going to hear things that's going to completely change your life. Guys, I'm so excited. So we are talking about breaking the cycle, stopping the sabotage in your success. And what I have for you today is special. We're diving into the depths of how the brain works, and you will see shifts and changes just by being on this call. So grab your paper and pen because you're going to want to hear this information. It's going to blow your mind. So what you need to know to create change. If you want to change your life, you have to understand how your brain actually works. Before we dive in, I want you to take everything you think you know about how change happens and just set it aside for a second and put on your beginner's hat. All right, I want you to look at this with fresh eyes because your entire experience of life, how you think, react, how you make decisions, and feel about yourself is based on one thing: your programming. And whether or not you realize it, you are always being programmed. There are only two ways that this is happening, that you're being programmed. So one, you're intentionally programming yourself. You are rewiring your mind with intention. And number two, you're getting programmed by everything around you. So that means letting outside influences shape your thoughts, your beliefs, your actions. There's no in between here. If you're not actively shaping your programming, the world is doing it for you, period. Now, here's the thing. Most people have only experienced the negative side of programming. Why? Because your life, your past, your environment, your emotions, and people who've influenced you have all shaped the way you see yourself and the world. This means if you're stuck, frustrated, or know that you are built for more but can't seem to break through, your programming is what is keeping you in that cycle. All right, but here's the truth that no one tells you. That very same programming that's keeping you stuck, it's also your ticket to freedom. Because if your brain is programmed to keep you in cycles you don't want, it also means that your brain can be programmed to create the life that you do want. Your mind is not fixed. It's malleable. It's trainable. And it's waiting for you to take control. And once you learn how to work your subconscious instead of against it, you will finally be able to break out of these old patterns, these old cycles, and create that lasting, tangible change. Change in your business, change in your life, the change that is permanent. So the question I ask you, and I want you to ask yourself, zero judgment as you come into this: are you the one programming your mind, or is someone else doing it for you? Now we're going to talk about neuro-linguistic programming and how to use the language of the mind to consistently achieve your specific and desired outcomes. So you have to understand how your brain actually communicates with itself. Your brain communicates linguistically. It speaks in language, words, and patterns that shape the way that you think, feel, and act. And a lot of you have probably heard of NLP, this neuro-linguistic programming. But for a second, I want you to throw out everything that you've ever known about it, anything you've heard about it. And again, look at this with fresh eyes. I want you to look at it different, not as something that you do as a modality that you can use for yourself, and not as a modality, but I want you to look at it like a language, okay? Because this is about understanding how your brain is already wired to run your life. And whether you know it or not, you have been programmed your entire life, period. You have been programmed your entire life. Your beliefs, your behaviors, and emotions are coded into your subconscious mind through the words and language that has shaped your experiences. And until you recognize this programming, you'll stay stuck in these cycles you don't even realize that you're repeating. So what makes up your programming? Your unconscious mind holds the root of every single pattern that's running your life right now. That fear of failure, it's programmed. That inability to stay consistent, it's programmed. That struggle with money or business or relationships, it's all programmed. You don't have to fix 1,000 things to change your life. You only need to fix one thing, the very root of the programming. You know, so many people will look at their lives and get overwhelmed and see a list of problems, a list of emotional struggles, a list of business issues, a list of failed relationships, and it feels overwhelming, right? Like there's too much to work on, too many things to fix, too many emotions to deal with. But the truth is, when you get to the actual root programming, you change all of it. Because real change isn't about forcing action through willpower. It's about levering the unconscious mind, the most powerful machine you'll ever own to create that change and transformation that lasts. Now, you've probably seen people selling quick fix mindset tricks to rewire your brain overnight. Do they work? Yes. Do they last? No. Because if you don't understand how your brain actually works, you're just layering new thoughts on top of old programming that hasn't been cleared. And that's why you keep having to do the work over and over and over again, like a never-ending cycle, because it's not sustainable for long-lasting change. It feels like you're making progress, but nothing really changes at the root. So I guarantee you, those patterns and cycles are just going to come back on repeat. It's like showering. It's like brushing your teeth. You have to do it every day because it's not actually addressing the real issue. And here's what actually creates change: understanding your programming, identifying the root patterns running your life, and rewiring your subconscious so the change is automatic, not forced. And that's exactly what I'm going to show you today. So you don't have to keep battling yourself. You don't have to keep struggling with the same cycles. You do have the power to take control of the programming that has kept you stuck in these cycles, beating your head against the wall. Because one shift can change everything. You are always being programmed, whether you believe it or not, whether you want it to happen or not, whether you are aware of it or not, it's happening, period. But there's a really big difference between intentional programming and unconscious programming. Okay, when you heal, you get to take control of your programming. You get to rewire your brain on purpose to create the life, success, freedom, relationships, everything that you really desire. When you don't heal, you will unconsciously live out the programming that's already been wired into you. The beliefs, the patterns, cycles, generations of cycles and patterns and beliefs that you picked up from your past will continue to dictate all of your actions, even when you know better, right? Like these cycles where you get done and you're like, I don't even know what happened. I don't know why I keep doing this. You know, NLP and your subconscious gives you freedom and choice. It's about having the freedom to make choices that empower you and others. It's an attitude of curiosity, this language of the brain, and it's a technique. But this is the thing, guys, your nervous system is your first gift from God. And let me tell you why. Think about this. The very first thing that formed when your dad's sperm met your mom's eggs was your nervous system, led by your brain. Your nervous system was designed to work for you, not against you. But when it's dysregulated, when you don't know how to work with it, when trauma and conditioning have shaped it in ways that you don't even realize, it can feel like your biggest enemy. You're trying to run a business. You're trying to help the world. You're trying to just help people. You're trying to create impact, wealth, freedom, and success. And yet it feels like your own mind is the very thing holding you back. I've been there. I always call it beating my head against the brick wall. I'm sure you've heard me say that before if you've been with me for a while. But this is the thing. God designed you with the ability to reprogram your brain. And everyone talks about rewiring your brain. You can't just rewire it, okay? Before you can install new beliefs and behaviors, you have to unwire the ones that no longer serve you. Because if you try to rewire your brain without healing, your old patterns will keep pulling you back. You'll feel like you're making progress, but then you'll snap back right into that self-sabotage. Or you'll start seeing some results, but something will pull you all the way back to square one. The yo-yo of your bank account or your marketing or your relationship. Next thing you know, everything blows up. And if you're here and you've invested in the mindset work, the strategies, the coaches, program after program, but nothing will actually stick, it's because healing has to come first. When you address the root of your programming, that's when this transformation actually happens. So this is how we use the language of the mind to consistently achieve your outcomes, your desired outcomes. That's what we want to do when we're neuro-linguistically programming ourselves. Problem is we can't do that without healing. So let's get into that first. Into NLP so you understand what that means and just how the brain works. So this is what neuro-linguistic programming really is. All right, it's not some technique, not a trend, not another mindset hack. Like this is simply how your brain works. And this is what we're really diving into next. But before you can rewire anything, we have to get to the root of your existing programming, okay? So let's break this down in a way that actually makes sense. Because once you understand this, you'll never, ever look at your patterns, triggers, or success in the same way again. So the nervous system, the mind, is how your brain processes your reality. Your brain experiences and interprets the world through your nervous system, which means everything that you perceive is filtered through your 5 senses, plus your self-talk. So visual, what you see, auditory, what you hear, kinesthetic, what you physically feel, movement and touch, olfactory, what you smell, gustatory, what you taste, and then your self-talk is the words that you say to yourself internally, sometimes externally as well. I talk to myself all the time externally. So both on that self-talk. But your entire life experience is built through these sensory inputs. Every thought you have, every belief you hold, every reaction you experience is processed through these channels. Okay. Linguistics is how your brain communicates and how triggers are formed. So this is language and unlike nonverbal communication systems. All right, your brain will communicate in pictures, sounds, feelings, tastes, smells, and words. And this is actually how you build beliefs. This is also how you get triggered. Have you ever heard a song or smelled a certain scent? Or maybe you saw a familiar face and you immediately felt something without even thinking about it? Maybe it's like a gut-wrenching feeling or anxiety or fear, or you're just frozen. That's because your brain has associated that sensory input with a specific meaning, emotion, or belief, and therefore you are triggered. It has connected the two. And this is why triggers happen so fast. You see something, you hear something, or even feel something physically, and before you can consciously process it, like boom, your brain has already activated a reaction. And here's the kicker. Triggers reinforce those belief systems. So let me give you an example. You hear a tone in someone's voice that reminds you of when you were belittled as a child. And instantly you feel the feeling of inadequacy. Or you see a certain number in your bank account, and immediately that feeling of stress and scarcity comes on you, turns your nervous system upside down. Or maybe you make a mistake in your business, or you may bomb something in your relationship, and that voice in your head says, see, you're not good enough. These are triggers, and if you don't regulate your brain's communication system, these unconscious patterns will sabotage your success without you even realizing it. And this is why self-regulation is everything. Because if you don't know how to create an internal environment where your brain works for you instead of against you, your gifts, your talents, what you were put on this earth to do will stay buried under layers of subconscious programming. And every time you go to take action on it, you will see the sabotage. So your programming is made up of all the beliefs, emotions, and thought patterns you've absorbed over time, most of which you were locked in by the time you were 7 years old. Yes, 7 years old. By the end of 7 years old, all of our foundational belief systems have been formed. And by the time you hit second grade, 90% of your programming is already set. Let that sink in for a minute. By the time you are in second grade, 90% of your programming is already set. And I guarantee you that that's what you are acting out of right now, is that programming. That means that if no one ever taught you how to manage your money, your financial beliefs were set as a child. If you grew up watching toxic relationships, your nervous system is wired itself to normal dysfunction. And if you were told to be quiet or not take up space, your self-worth struggles were already programmed before you even hit double digits. And if you haven't gone back to heal those early experiences and rewrite those beliefs, then guess what? You're still running on outdated programming. That means you show up in your relationships at the same age from 0 to 7 in which those toxic relationships were reinforced. You show up in your money and finances from 0 to 7 at one of those ages when those financial beliefs were reinforced. Your unconscious mind is constantly running the show behind the scenes. Every decision you make, every habit you repeat, every limiting belief that you battle, it's all being dictated by this programming that you didn't even choose. And here's what makes this even crazier, y'all. If you don't actively rewire your programming, someone else is doing it for you. The media does this all the time. Commercials, society, social conditioning, everything around you is reinforcing patterns in your subconscious mind. So if you don't reclaim control over your mind, you will keep unconsciously living out someone else's agenda. This is just the way the brain works. So there's two things that you can do. You can try to tackle one problem at a time, chipping away at symptoms without ever really getting to the core issue. Or you can clear out the entire system by working directly with the RAS, the reticular activating system, which we're going to get to in a minute. So your brain stops repeating old patterns and starts creating what you actually want. If you don't do this work properly, your brain will snap right back into its old programming. You'll keep self-sabotaging, repeating patterns, and wondering why nothing really changes. And this is exactly why I do what I do. Your brain is the most powerful tool once you know how to use it correctly. You don't need more motivation. You need to change the system that's running the show. And when you do, everything shifts. So let's break down how your brain is actually wired and why it's keeping you stuck. So first, we have the amygdala. The amygdala is in the unconscious mind. This is where our survival mode is and our addiction to chaos. So the amygdala lives in your unconscious mind and it has one job: survival. That's it. It doesn't care about your success, doesn't care about your happiness, your personal growth, your goals, doesn't care about any of it. It's wired to do three things: keep you alive. And in that, it is your fight, flight, freeze, or faint. To make sure that you eat and to ensure the survival of the species, procreation. That's it. No emotions, no reasoning, just raw survival instincts. Here's the problem. If you've experienced trauma, especially before the age of 7, and remember, trauma not being the actual event as traumatic as it was, but trauma is an influence or an event coupled with a deep emotion, and we decide something about ourselves or the world, and that becomes our belief and how we recreate our lives. So if you have experienced trauma, especially before 7 years old, your brain is hardwired to stay stuck in survival mode. When the amygdala fires off, it floods your body with cortisol, the stress hormone. And if you grew up in an environment where chaos was normal, then your brain literally learned to depend on cortisol. You don't just crave safety, you crave the stress that feels like safety. And this is why you unconsciously create chaos in your business, relationships, and finances. If it's sending out cortisol into your body, and from ages of 0 to 7, when you're learning how to make decisions and you're learning how to trust yourself and what love looks like and everything like that, and you don't know how to make those decisions or do that anything now with cortisol, you're probably addicted. You're probably addicted to chaos today. So I just helped you figure out the reason why you create chaos in your business, why you always create drama, and why you keep going back into these toxic relationships. This is the way the brain works. And you're really just meeting this core need of meeting cortisol. It makes sense. If this is resonating with you at all, put a 1. Put a 1 in the chat if this is resonating with you. Your nervous system is wired for survival, not success. And if your brain learned to associate chaos with normalcy, you're going to keep creating it. Okay. And this is why simply just thinking positive or trying to use willpower, well, it won't work. It won't work. You know, running affirmations every day, it's not going to work. Your brain is running a deeper program, and until you address it, you will keep repeating these cycles. All right, let's go into the limbic system. So the limbic system is the emotional center of your brain, also in the unconscious mind. It is designed to seek pleasure and avoid pain. Your brain will always do more to avoid pain than it will to pursue pleasure. All right, your brain will always do more to avoid pain than it will to pursue pleasure. And that is why people stay stuck. That is why you stay in a job you hate instead of risking something new. This is why you resist putting yourself out there in business, because rejection feels worse than staying small. And this is why you sabotage your success the moment things start getting good, because growth feels uncertain, and uncertainty equals potential danger to the brain. Here's the game changer. You can use pain as a tool for motivation. If you can tap into the pain of staying stuck, your brain will work for you instead of against you. And when you associate more pain with repeating old patterns than you do with growth, your brain will prioritize change. Make sense? You don't need more discipline. Okay, you need to rewire your unconscious mind so success feels safer than staying where you are. All right, and then that brings us to the neocortex. Your conscious mind is where this sits. And this is where logic and reasoning live. It does not run the show. It just justifies the decisions that your unconscious mind is already making. All right? Ever make a decision and then come up with reasons after the fact to explain why you did it? That's your neocortex at work. Your unconscious mind, which is 96% of everything that you do, decides first. Your conscious mind just rationalizes it later. And humans are really great at rationalizing. Am I right? We can rationalize anything. We can tell ourselves a story about anything. So your amygdala is wired for survival, not success. Your limbic system is doing everything it can to keep you in your comfort zone. And then your neocortex is rationalizing why you're stuck, making excuses and keeping you in the same loop. And this is why it feels so dang hard. I get it. I've been there. And until you rewire the unconscious patterns keeping you in this survival mode, your brain will always pull you back to what's familiar. Even when what's familiar is keeping you broke, keeping you burned out and frustrated. Okay? Your brain is not working against you. It's just running a program that wasn't designed for the life you were trying to build. All right, let's look at the power of your subconscious mind. I love this. All right, if 96% of everything you do comes from your unconscious mind, that means only 4% of your brain is available for your goals, your dreams, your learning, and your growth. So what is really happening in this 96%? Okay, this is where all your dreams, all your aspirations, all your goals are. And this is what's actually the machine. This is what's driving it. Your unconscious mind is the engine. It's the engine behind every decision, every reaction, and every single belief that you hold. It's responsible for seeking pleasure and avoiding pain and running the programming you've absorbed your entire life. It creates autopilot behaviors that shape your actions, both good and bad habits, by the way. And this is why self-sabotage feels like it happens before you even see it coming. Most of the time, we will find it on reflection, right? You push away relationships that could be good for you, or you procrastinate, overthink, or sabotage your business when things are going well, right? Or you fall back into these old habits that don't serve you again and again. Why? Because your unconscious mind is running the program and it doesn't care what your goals are here. Remember, this is only 4%. So there's two ways to change your patterns. There's the slow way of trying to think your way out of them, or there's the fast way of rewiring your unconscious mind so success happens automatically. Hit the easy button here. So the slow way looks like reading more books, taking on more information, trying to force yourself into these new habits with sheer willpower. And how well is that working out for you? If this worked, you wouldn't still be struggling. The fast way, is leveraging your unconscious mind to create autopilot behaviors that align with what you actually want. Because when you reprogram the root, the change becomes effortless. True alignment. This is where it comes from. It is aligning the 96% with the 4% to get on board with your vision and what you want. So just imagine if your success patterns were automatic, just like your self-sabotage used to be. And what if you didn't have to force confidence, action, or motivation because it simply just became who you are? What if your brain was actually working for you, not against you? And this is the thing. You do not lack information. You lack a process that's going to guide you with real healing that attacks the root where it creates the autopilot behavior. Okay? And you will know what's really great about autopilot behavior. You don't have to try. You don't have to try it at all. It just happens automatically. So you can live from ease and flow, or you can live from a place of will, constantly having to pay people for your highest wisdom because you don't know how to get it from yourself, right? All right, what is the unconscious mind responsible for? So this is important to note. It stores and organizes memories. It represses unresolved trauma. And if you have unprocessed pain or trauma, your unconscious mind will bury it for protection. And it keeps it locked away until it feels safe enough to pull it up to process. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not still affecting your life. Remember, everything in the unconscious mind, 96% of our life is driven from that place. It is like a hurricane going on in the subconscious mind, and it has control over everything that you're doing. Okay, and this is important to address and why our process works. Because our process allows you to lead. It's permission-based so that only what is safe and you have the emotional availability for will come up. I was re-traumatized so many times in different modalities and therapies before I found this. So what do you need to have a memory come back up? You have to have the emotional availability to deal with it, and you have to have the emotional safety for your unconscious mind. So you've got your amygdala who's going to make sure that we're keeping it safe. So when we bypass the body's own protection mechanisms, it's going to be natural that bad things could happen because it's not natural, right? What we want to do is we want to heal in the natural way. We want to heal in the order that we were hurt in. And when we do that, it works. So the subconscious is our GPS. It's like the homing device of our behavior. It's going to filter through all these different things before we actually know what's going on in our real life. Like, this is what creates our view of reality. No one actually sees reality because every single one of us has so many filters. But this is what it determines what our view is. It's going to get processed through all of our memories, all of our emotions, because it is the domain of all of our emotions. It holds the morality that you've been taught and accepted. And our morality is one of the huge things that affect our own behavior. And it also decides on what we're going to feel bad or good about, right? It's all based on our morality and what has been programmed in there. So all of these things is what basically creates that programming within that particular activating system in the unconscious mind. That is, again, controlling and is the perception of our entire life. So it controls our perceptions. It then receives and transmits those perceptions to the conscious mind. and I know that you've heard me talk about it so many times, the way we take on information. We think we take on information with our eyes. We think about it with our conscious mind, and then it gets sent to our unconscious mind to think about and be stored as a memory. But that's not what happens. What happens is we take on information through our eyes. It bypasses our logical thinking brain, our conscious mind, our critical factor, and it gets filtered through all of this. And then we delete, generalize, and distort that information. And then we transmit that perception of what's really true to the frontal lobe. And that's what we call truth. After being filtered through all of our belief systems, all of our programming, all of our memories, all of our emotions. So when I say that you're living a figment of your imagination, please understand that that's absolutely true. There is an infinite amount of possibilities and things that are available to you right now. And we will delete, generalize, and distort those things and keep ourselves safe. Because that's a primary objective of the subconscious mind, right? We will generate habits from the unconscious mind. We need repetition until a habit is actually installed. You know this is neuroplasticity. So you're never going to get around that. But the difference is you're going to will yourself to do it every single day. I'm going to wake up, I have it on my schedule, I'm going to force myself to do this, and I'm going to fight the entire way. Or you're going to heal that which keeps you from it, and then create new neural pathways that strengthen that behavior. So you've got the engine supporting the 4%, instead of the 4% dragging around the 96% with all of its belief systems. So self-destructive, right? But also, while this behavior is self-destructive, it comes from a loving place in your unconscious mind. Your brain is always working for you. Everything you do, even self-sabotage, is your mind's way of keeping you safe based on what it's programmed to believe. So what do we have to get safety and availability? This is where our job comes in. Our job is to create the internal environment. And that's what we're doing here, because the internal environment within our body stems from what's going on in the unconscious mind. Because, like I said, it's also what releases all of your chemicals and takes care of all of your autonomous processes, right? You create the safety. Only you can create that safety. And as you create the safety and the emotional availability, then you will have the safety for those things to come up. And as you get the safety for those things to come up, you learn to trust yourself again. Some of us have been shutting down our feelings and our emotions and numbing for a very long time. Your desires and your goals for your life, you're never going to do it if you don't have the trust within yourself. Okay? And we're going to change that. You have the opportunity to change that. This work right here, learning how to work your brain so it generates, distributes, and transmutes and transmits energy. Everything around us, we're always taking on energy. We're picking it up, we're giving energy off. And when you can do that with intention, you're not going to be so tossed by the waves. All of the patterns I created throughout the years and the thoughts that shutting down my feelings just to get the sense of safety. Yes, and safety's always going to win. Always, always. The unconscious mind will always win. So you're going to create the safety that you need to be able to do the things that God has put you on this earth to do. Or you're not going to do it. It's just that simple. because ultimately this thing's going to win. The unconscious mind and its need for safety is always going to win. So another thing that's important to note about the unconscious mind is it takes everything literally. It does not know the difference between true and false. It does not know the difference between me and you. It does not know the difference between being sarcastic. It just knows words. It's like a computer database. It works off the path of least resistance. And this is great. Like, we need this because this is exactly why you're self-sabotaging your life. It's also why, getting to a successful place in your life and your business is also the easiest thing to do. Right now, your quickest path is your superhighway that says success isn't safe or relationships aren't safe. And it will self-sabotage easily to destruct what deems life-threatening, according to your subconscious mind. We want to rewrite this so that your quickest way and superhighway is trusting your emotions and implanting beliefs, so your default will be success. Another thing to note about the unconscious mind is it does not process negatives. So if I tell you right now, don't think of a purple frog, most likely you just got an image of a purple frog in your head, right? So the unconscious mind will not register don't. It does not register negatives. It also is the literal part of it. So it's very literal, very literal. So you're definitely going to think of a purple frog. If I tell you not to do something, you're going to do it. And this is why we tell our kids, walk instead of don't run. Because as soon as we say don't run, what do? They run every single time, right? So we want to know what this language is and how it helps us know how our brain is programmed. We could be much more of an effective communicator with those around us. And most importantly, how to talk to ourselves, because words matter. And if I tell you to not think of a purple frog, you still can't stop it, right? So you need to know what your brain does and why your brain thinks of things. All right, because when you think of things, when you have a thought, your brain puts out a chemical, a hormone. And that hormone tells you what to feel every time. If you want to feel different, you have to think different. If you want to think different, you're going to have to deal with this unconscious mind that is thinking what it's been programmed to think for the past, well, however many years you've been alive, right? Is this resonating with anyone? All right. Are we in control of our actions? So we've established that 96% of everything that you do is driven by your unconscious mind, while only 4% is controlled by conscious thought, your logic and reasoning. This means that no matter how much effort you put into your goals, if your subconscious mind isn't on board, it will always override your conscious desires. So this may be a little tough to see. This gray is your conscious mind, and this red is your conscious mind. And this side is where we start, and this is where we're going. Do you see the percentage of how much your unconscious mind rules here, right? So the goal isn't to just operate from the 4%, it's to bring more of your unconscious programming into alignment with what you actually want. This is where we're going so that everybody can be on board. Your unconscious mind that controls 96% is now on board with your logical thinking brain, right? Because when your unconscious mind supports your conscious desires, you're going to naturally take action. You're going to naturally follow through, and you're going to attract the success you've been working so hard for. All right. So let's get into the reticular activating system. This is our homing device. It's our GPS. This sits in the subconscious mind. And again, how we think we take on information isn't the case at all. This is where it's going through your program. You're getting a picture right now. We take on information and then it gets filtered through the unconscious mind first. And then the distorted image comes to the conscious mind. So it gets filtered through all of our programming, all of our environmental programming, our economic programming, our financial programming, our programming that we've had it through our whole life, all of our business programming that we had, all of our educational, our spiritual programming, our religious programming, our parental programming that we've had. It gets sorted and distorted through any trauma that we may have had, all of our experiences, all of our emotions, all of our belief system. That's what it gets filtered through. And then based on what's programmed in there, we will downright delete it altogether. And that's why some of you haven't hit the next level of your business. Because anytime there's an opportunity for that and it doesn't match your belief system, your conscious mind doesn't even see it as available to even take action on. It will delete it. We will delete, generalize, and distort that incoming information to match what is in this reticular activating system. And that's what comes to our conscious logical thinking brain. So, an example of this, I do this all the time. You're on the phone and you panic because you can't find your phone. Like I'm literally talking to someone. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have no idea where my phone is. Or you may have your keys in your hand, and when you put them in your hand, it wasn't important. So the brain deleted it. So then you're walking around with your keys in your hand, wondering where in the world did you put it, right? So knowing that it deletes important information is really, really important. Knowing that it deletes information is really important. Okay. Your brain operates like a GPS. So it is constantly directing your thoughts, emotions, and actions based on past experiences and really deeply ingrained beliefs. Right now, you're running on a really narrow set of belief systems backed by years of emotions and experiences. And even when you do the work, whether it's healing your worthiness, money mindset, or abundance, or whatever work that you're doing, you might feel better temporarily, but eventually the old beliefs will snap right back into place. And that's because the real work isn't just about shifting your thoughts. It's about creating internal safety. So your brain doesn't default back to limiting patterns. So emotional baggage builds up. And this is where the term emotional baggage originated. And it perfectly explains what happens in the brain over time. So we have these gestalts, and they fill up. Each emotion has a gestalt and they will fill up. So from birth to today, your brain has been storing emotions, beliefs, and experiences. If you never learned how to regulate your emotions, those experiences get locked into your nervous system. If you grew up in an environment where emotions weren't processed in a healthy way, your brain never learned how to release them. So for many of us, our emotional gestalt or storage was full by childhood. Some of us filled up later in life, but unless you had parents or role models who taught you emotional regulation, you likely never learned how to manage what you were feeling. And I don't know about you, but this was definitely not a dinner conversation. I grew up in more of the elephant is going to sit in the middle of the room and nobody's going to talk about it. Right? So when these emotions are stored and they reach capacity, they don't just sit quietly, they spill over into ineffective emotions. And when that happens, that's when you get the high emotion, low IQ. Okay, your unconscious mind doesn't just store emotions. It will categorize and filter all of your memories instantly. And that means when something triggers you today, your brain doesn't just react to the present moment. All right. It reacts based on all the unprocessed emotions you've been carrying for years. And when this is full, which the majority of the population, your gestalts are full by 18. And if anything has happened prior to that, then they've been full for a lot longer. So anger, when it fills up, it will turn into rage and spill out. Sadness will turn into depression. Fear turns into anxiety and anxiety attacks. And so this is important for you to hear. You don't have an anxiety disorder. Your brain is producing anxiety because it never learned how to regulate fear. You don't suffer from depression. You are experiencing depression because your stored sadness has nowhere to go. This is just how the brain works. The issue is not the emotion itself. Our emotions are here for us. They're here to communicate with us. It's that you were never taught how to process and regulate it. Ever notice how you can act completely irrational when you're upset? You're like, "Oof, I think I overdid that one a little." That's because your emotion spills over. Your brain reverts back to the age when you first experienced that emotion. High emotion, low IQ. An example of this is a 40-year-old who grabs his gun and shoots another driver for cutting him off. Not reasonable, right? But a 2-year-old throwing a temper tantrum when things don't go their way, completely normal. And that's because when your stored anger spills out, your rational brain, your neocortex, shuts down. And you react from the age you were when that emotion was first imprinted. This is also why you keep running into the same emotional blocks in your business, your relationships, and your finances. If your money issues started at age 7, you're making financial decisions with the emotional maturity of a 7-year-old. And if you first felt abandonment at age 5, you're showing up in relationships with the emotional reactions of a 5-year-old. If you want to heal, stop self-sabotaging, and stop these patterns, you have to learn how to regulate your emotions. Okay, healing isn't just about talking through your trauma. That's in the 4%. It's about retraining your nervous system to process emotions differently. So you stop reacting from old wounds and start responding from your highest self. Emotional regulation is healing. Healing is reprogramming your brain. And when you can regulate your emotions, you create internal safety. That is the foundation for everything that you're building and you desire to have. All right, this is a representation of your unconscious mind, and these are all of your gestalts you have here, okay? So what makes up belief systems with all of these gestalts? So how do we make belief systems? We have the influence. This is also what I call trauma. This is the actual trauma. We have an influence. When you have an outside person, place, or thing that you're interacting with, and it's coupled with a deep emotion, you're going to decide something about yourself or the world. All right, so you see these influences here? That's your influence gestalt that runs vertically, okay? And then we also have all the different emotions: anger and rage, sadness and hurt, fear and anxiety, guilt and shame. And that being the regular emotion that is healthy for you: anger, sadness, fear, and guilt. And then versus the top emotion that spills out: rage, depression, anxiety, and shame. So what happens is dad does something and you experience anger and it's imprinted. And then dad does something and you experience sadness. Then mom will make you angry and it's imprinted, right? She makes you sad and hurt. You have fear from dad, another imprint. And you have all of your relationship experiences everything that's happened with dad and this gestalt, all these different experiences, along with all of these different emotions that are here in this gestalt. Okay. Our job is to release all of those different gestalts so that you can have a healed, manageable relationship with these people. People are hurt people that don't know how to regulate their emotions or heal. And so they're going to throw punches and they're going to produce emotions, good, bad, or indifferent. So we have to learn how to process our emotions. So what happens is you've got this anger around dad. And then that anger fills up with a bunch of different people in it, right? Your mom makes you angry, then your partner makes you angry, and then your abuse makes you angry. Your siblings make you angry, your boss, your business. You make yourself angry, right? And this just keeps going on and going on and on until all this is filled up. And then we're sitting in this place of overwhelm, which, by the way, overwhelm is not really a feeling. It is a conglomerate of feelings. It is an umbrella, and we use that term when we can't decipher what we're actually feeling. And because we don't know how to process our feelings, regulate our feelings, feel our feelings, or separate specific feelings from other feelings in this, it becomes this umbrella of emotion. And then we end up having an anxiety attack, or we do whatever our amygdala decides to do, which is fight, flight, freeze, faint. And that's all normal. This is just the way the brain's working. And then we call ourselves broken. We don't have to shame ourselves that we're overwhelmed. This is just the way the brain works, okay? And I'm telling you, if you get nothing else but this, learning how to work your brain and understanding so you can drop the guilt and shame of why it is that you do what you do, the things that you do, the way that you feel, the things that you feel, and have some hope that things can be different for you, that you can actually change. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. Your brain's just doing what the brain does. So amongst all these things, this is where our belief systems are created. Because again, an outside influence coupled with a deep emotion, and we decide something about ourselves or the world. And this is where unworthiness lives. This is where being unlovable lives. I'm fat. I'm ugly. I'm dumb. Money is evil. I hate myself. I'm not good enough. See how these belief systems are formed? So I want you to do this. I want you to take your hands and I want you to imagine all these fingers are your thoughts. And this is your influences in your left. And I want you to put your left in front of your face. And then I want you to take your right hand, and these are all of your emotions, and I want you to put that in front of your face. Can you see or not see? And that's the problem. You can see how it clouds your vision, right? You can see how it clouds your vision, and the only thing that you can see through there is, I hate myself. I'm not good enough. Money is evil. I'm fat. I'm ugly. I'm dumb. I'm unlovable. I'm unworthy. I'm a failure. And then anything that you might possibly have been able to see before you delete, generalize, or distort, when we clear out the influences and we clear out the emotions, then we can tackle these belief systems, but not until then. That's how deep they are wired into our system. There's so many programs out there that are trying to work on these belief systems and haven't worked on what created the belief system itself. You know, if you work on your self-worth with a coach or a program, and it helps you shift your belief from I'm not good enough to I am worthy. It sounds really great, right? Except your brain just doesn't accept the new belief and move on. It filters through beliefs through years of stored emotions and experiences. And if it doesn't match your programming, your past programming, your unconscious mind will reject it. Your mind literally will call BS on it. So you might feel great for a little while, but eventually you slip back into those old patterns. You start attracting the same toxic relationships or business struggles. You delete, distort, or ignore opportunities that could actually help you. And this is why you keep seeing the same cycles repeat, just with different faces, situations, or businesses attached to them. Until you deal with what created the limiting belief in the first place, you're just putting a Band-Aid over an infected wound. It's going to come back up and fester. And we know what happens in the brain. It's going to take that new information and send it through all this anger, all this hurt, all these things, all of these belief systems. And if it doesn't match up with all of these, it's going to delete it. So first we have to clear out and heal our major influences: mom, dad, abusers, siblings, whatever it is. Then we take the emotions and clear them, okay? And regulate our emotions. So you've got to learn how to regulate your emotions, and then we can take these negative belief systems that we have again, like I'm not good enough, and turn it into something that is true, always been true, always will be true, and rewire it to it was true, it's not true now, and will never be true again. And this is the reason I could stand before you today, is because my whole life has changed. And everyone around me, my business, my relationships, my love for myself. Before I did this work, I didn't even care if I lived or died. I was on anxiety and depression medication, and I spent most of my life feeling broken and trying to find anyone or anything to fix me. When the whole time my brain was just doing what the brain does, and I was drowning in my trauma. So then when we finally give ourselves a choice to do something different, to think something different versus this superhighway, we get to implant beliefs. And I'm worthy of all good things, which was never true, wasn't true, never going to be true, never will be true. That's where that set. That's where that was in my gestalt. And we moved it over to something that is true, was true, and it's always going to be true. And when we do that, you know it in your bones. There are no more triggers. There's nothing anyone can say because you know it. Know it in your knower. All right, so if the programming isn't clear, your brain will always default back to what it knows. So first in my programs, we clear out the influences. Okay, we clear out the influences first that shaped your beliefs, whether it was parents, mom, dad, caregivers, past relationships, partners, friendships, business connections, your experiences with abuse, rejection, failure, betrayal, because these experiences form the emotional patterns running in the background of your life. Then we clear out the emotions, because unprocessed anger turns into resentment and frustration in your business and relationships. This unhealed fear creates procrastination, avoidance, and staying stuck in your comfort zone. And this guilt and shame is going to keep you undercharging, over-delivering, and feeling unworthy of success, unworthy of relationships, inability of connection with other people, isolation. And this is the part that most people miss. They try to build confidence on top of unprocessed emotional baggage. They try to create new belief systems without clearing the experiences that created the old ones. Once we've cleared out the root of the belief systems, we rewire the belief to be not true and never true again. And when you remove the root of the pattern, you no longer have to force yourself to act differently. It just happens naturally. This is the thing. Self-sabotage isn't random, okay? It's a subconscious attempt to meet a need. Your brain is trying to keep you safe. Even when it's actually keeping you stuck, it's still keeping you safe. That's why no matter how much you want to succeed, no matter how many strategies that you learn or courses that you take, no matter how much effort that you put in, no matter how bad you want your relationship to work, your marriage to work, no matter how much you want to get healthy and lose the weight, if your subconscious still believes that success is unsafe, hard, or you're unworthy, or you're unlovable, and then your partner starts to show you love, or that your weight, is what's keeping you safe from perpetrators, you will sabotage it. So what actually changes when you clear the programming? You naturally take action without resistance. You no longer check out or fall into chaos every time things start going well. Your defaults change. And you trust yourself. You make aligned decisions and stop overthinking every move. So let's look at the real results. You learn how to effectively process your emotions. You get any lingering toxins from your trauma that is keeping you stuck. And if you're here and you've already done a ton of work, now honor that, and we appreciate that. All the work that you've done matters and allows you to go even deeper in this process because it's cumulative. The one thing that we know is we can't fully clear out the emotions and we can't fully clear out the beliefs until you've done this work. So we'll know if it's done or not. And that's why we have the absolute most thorough history with you in the very beginning. And what are all of the influences, the places, the person and things that created the emotions, both good and bad, that you are continuing to recreate in your life. We're going to get rid of the triggers and stop self-sabotage in its tracks. And knowing what self-sabotage is, it's really just meeting our needs, right? But now we're going to know how to meet our needs in a healthier way and gain new tools and resources to propel you in your business, your life, your relationships. And we're going to create new belief systems that are going to skyrocket your confidence. It's going to skyrocket your revenue. It's going to skyrocket your wealth. Because this work restores you to the person God put you on this earth to be. And He has big plans for every single one of you. He has big plans for you. We can't move forward in that with all these lies in our head. We'll keep bumping into ourselves over and over and over again. So reclaim your power. Trust yourself at the deepest level, because trusting God starts with trusting ourselves. A lack of trust is equivalent to a lack of safety, and your primary objective of the subconscious mind is to keep you safe. So yes, you keep hitting a brick wall. When we don't trust ourselves, we don't follow our intuition and then build something based on someone else's desires and wake up and are miserable because we look to everyone else to get the answers when all your answers are inside of you. Align with your God-given talents, because when you are in your gifts, everything is ease and flow. You are the only you, and your gifts matter. When we are operating outside that, we are completely out of alignment and everything feels forced and fake. Ask me how I know. Okay, my own first client. And this alignment starts with clearing out the BS and knowing how to work your brain and connect with every single part of you. You can't be whole if you reject parts of yourself. If you reject parts of yourself, you betray parts of you. If you betray parts of you, you can't be authentic. And aren't you tired of wearing the mask? Of being the chameleon and the puppet to the world and people around you? I appreciate and I truly honor you taking time for today. God put you here with a purpose. Know that you are meant to be here and everything has led you to right here and right now.